A significant change in the trade dynamics involving British luxury cars has raised eyebrows amidst international sanctions against Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. Analysis of official Revenue and Customs (HMRC) trade data conducted by Sky News suggests that while direct car exports from the UK to Russia have plummeted to zero, there has been a startling increase in the export of these vehicles to Azerbaijan, a neighbor of Russia. The data demonstrates a surge in the UK's export of vehicles to Azerbaijan, peaking at £273 million last year, a remarkable 1,860% increase compared to the 5 years prior to the invasion. The shift in export destinations brings to light potential methods used to circumvent the punitive measures aimed at Moscow. Identifying the pattern, the exports to Azerbaijan roughly matched the former value of cars that the UK used to ship directly to Russia, averaging £330 million annually, before sanctions took hold. Concurrently, the United Nations international trade data corroborates that Azerbaijan has similarly spiked its car exports to Russia during this period, aligning with Sky News reports from sources indicating a preference for using Azerbaijan as a transit route for British cars headed to Russia. Notably, cars, particularly those worth more than £42,000, considered luxury vehicles, are included under a dual-use sanctions regime that prohibits such sales to Russia. While the export records from HMRC showcase only the initial leg of the journey, leaving at ports such as the unusually active Port of Bristol, tracking the final destination of these consignments becomes onerous once they land in third countries. British car manufacturers and UK motoring lobby groups have consistently stated their commitment to uphold all trade sanctions, with no evidence directly suggesting any breach of compliance. Nevertheless, the circumstantial trade patterns ignite concerns over the indirect supply routes that could be propping up Russia against the intended pressure from international sanctions. Rolls-Royce, owned by BMW, and Bentley, a subsidiary of VW, assert that any exports to Russia post-sanctions would be without their consent or knowledge, emphasizing the legal obligations of their global dealer networks. The reliance on third countries with strong economic ties to Russia, such as Azerbaijan, as possible conduits for commerce not intended to reach Russia, poses a considerable challenge to the enforcement of sanctions. Sanctions experts point to the complexity of tracking goods beyond their entry point into these countries. Britain's response, through Sanctions Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan, acknowledges the importance of investigative reporting in uncovering possible sanctions circumventions. The country has introduced sweeping sanctions while partnering with allies to prevent Russia from receiving support for its military activities. The UK maintains a strong stance on pursuing and penalizing those who attempt to bypass these imposed sanctions. This development of indirect sales routes underscores the intricate nature of global trade and the difficulties encountered in enforcing international sanctions. The UK, as a prominent player in the global car market, now finds itself in a delicate position as the rise in car exports to Azerbaijan places the South Caucasian nation among the UK's top destinations for car exports by value, surpassing several European countries, thus highlighting the complexity of sanctions enforcement in a globally interconnected economy.